Jay, and really it was pretty interesting to see our praise team function as good as they did today with a wall between them, but they did a good job. There's been a lot of work into our vacation Bible school, and I really hope that we have one of the best ones we've ever had. So if you haven't planned on helping, you got free lunch today. Even if you don't want to, at least pretend like you want to get a free lunch. How about that? So that is right after the church. Matthew 22, we will be talking today. I'm excited about this particular topic. Before we get into the topic, though, just most of you may have known via email or through social media that Terry Anderson, who we've been praying for some time, did pass away this past week. And she is with the Lord now. God answered the prayer. She is healed. And so pray for the family. The funeral will be here Wednesday night. Now, all the teen activities, all the youth activities, everything will be as scheduled, but we will be having a memorial service here Wednesday night beginning at 5:30 for the family of Terry Anderson, celebrating the life of this dear lady. We have been in that for quite some time, and today we're going to talk about a topic that we can all relate to. A lot of times when Jesus spoke in parables, which was an earthly story that had a heavenly meaning or a teaching lesson, we couldn't relate to it. So we had to spend quite a bit of time really digging up what it meant, how it was applicable. But today we're going to talk about a wedding. And we can all relate to weddings in some form or fashion. And Jesus uses the parable of a wedding to bring home a very distinctive point. So Matthew chapter 22, beginning with verses 1 through 14, we'll read that and then we'll get into today's lesson. Jesus also told them other parables, and here's one of those parables. He said that the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king. Not just any wedding, but a king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants to notify those who were invited, but they refused to come. Now this is crazy. Because this was not just a wedding. Now, some people like weddings. Some people just like going to weddings. Some people not so much. But to be invited to a king's wedding, this is an extravagant ordeal. And everybody would love to have been invited to a king's wedding because of the food that you would be able to eat, because of the notable people that were there. So the king's son, which was the prince, was going to have a tremendous wedding, and he sent out invitations to those who were close to him, but they all refused to come. Not one, but all of them. So he sent other servants to tell them, the feast has been prepared, the bulls, the fattened cattle have been killed, and everything is ready. Come to the banquet. He sent one message, and they refused. So he sends a second message out, and he begins to describe what they're going to have. Now, he had me at the fattened cow. I'm just going to be honest with you. He had me there. I would love to go eat steak, and even if I didn't know the people, I would just go for the food. And so he gives them a second invitation. He says, come to the banquet. Verse 5, it says, but the guests he had invited, they refused the first time. They ignored this time. And then they went on about their business. The phrase can be translated their business. One went to his farm and the other businesses. Verse 6, we see kind of an interesting turn, though, that's really unmerited. It says, others seized the messengers. They berated them or they insulted them, and then they went so far as to kill them. Only because they invited them to a wedding feast. The king was furious, as he had a right to be, and he sent out his army to destroy the murderers and burn down their town. Verse 8, and he said to his servants, the wedding feast is ready, and the guests I invited are not worthy of this honor. Now go out to the street corners and invite everyone you see. It didn't matter this time if we know them or not. Just invite everybody you see. So the servants brought in everyone they could find, good and bad alike, and the banquet hall was filled with all kinds of people. But when the king came in to meet the guests, he noticed there was a man who wasn't wearing proper clothing. Now that's important. We're going to talk about that in a little bit for the wedding. Friend, he said, how is it that you came to my wedding feast without proper wedding clothes? Now this is awesome right here. Look at this phrase. But the man had no reply. We're going to focus on that phrase in just a little bit. Verse 13, we've got one more verse after this. But the king said to his aides, bind his hands and feet, throw him into the outer darkness. There'll be weeping and gnashing of teeth, a reference to eternal fire, eternal hell. And verse 14, for many are called, but few are chosen. Man, this is a story about a wedding that's a big deal. These weddings then were not like weddings today. They would last for days. I mean, people would come and the whole town would shut down and they would sit and eat one day after the next, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They would have dancing, and it was just a humongous deal. It was one great big party. Let me say this. You wanted to go to the weddings back then. A lot of these traditions are still seen in some countries like India, where they will march down the street on the white horse, and the groom would be decorated in these ornate clothing apparel, and they would call out to the bride and say, the bridegroom is coming still today. Ravi Zacharias talks about this. And they would have this great feast, and oftentimes people from all over the community would come and eat, and they didn't even know the bride or the groom. This was a big deal, and the king made it even more intricate and more big. This was a royal wedding. Can't get any bigger than that back then. He's painting a picture to everyone that hears. He says, this is the biggest deal that you could possibly imagine when it comes to a party or a celebration. The king made a personal invite to the people of that community, but they refused to come to this great party that he was hosting. The point is, as we open this, as they were called to be a part of a wedding party, but they refused to do it. So let's break this down. But before we do, let's ask God's blessing. Father, thank you for the weather, first of all. We've had some extremely hot weather lately. And today, just waking up early this morning, just so nice outside. Thank you for the kids at the Sundays. Lord Jesus, having kids in this church that are being taught about you. I just thank you for that. Lord, I thank you for allowing us to be here, because honestly, we have obligations, we have things we need to do, but you allowed us to be here this morning. You gave us the help. Lord Jesus, you directed us to be in this place at this particular time. So God, I don't want to be a disappointment, which I will be to these people. I pray that you, your word, really and truly bring out, grab a hold of my heart and the others here today. Father, I pray that you would teach us through this parable that you have invited all of us to come to know you. God, in the end, there will be no excuse when we stand before you one day, either as a judge who never knew us, or a loving Father who welcomes us to our eternal home. In Jesus, your name alone we pray. Amen. Let's talk about the occasion. The occasion was a wedding. It was a big wedding. How many of you have ever been to a wedding? How many of you have been to a wedding you didn't want to go to? Don't raise your hand back. Even the weddings today, sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, are they going to ever be over with? You got rehearsals, you got all these practices and all this, and then sometimes, being a part of many weddings, you go and the wedding supposedly starts at 6 o'clock of the rehearsal, and then, 6:30 people are still coming in, and I'm like, man, I got to go. And weddings can be a big deal. They are a big deal, but this was the wedding of a king's son. So this really elevated the status of this particular wedding. And as it was customary, as we talked about earlier in the book of Matthew, you saw that what happened was you were invited to the wedding, but the date wasn't often given. The parable of the 10 brides and so forth really relates to that. And what would happen is, Parker would ask his future wife, Edie, will you marry me? And she says, yes. And he says, okay. Now, it's not really fair, but this is what happened. I'll let you know. Can you imagine that today? Can you imagine that today? Can you imagine you telling your wife, hey, listen, we're going to get married. And she says, okay, well, you say sometime in June. Time comes, honey, I'll let you know. Chances are you will be in counseling long before you ever get married. And so what they would do is the bride would have to be ready, and when the bridegroom decided it was time, he would send forth his servants, and they would call out, behold, the bridegroom cometh. You've heard that if you've been in church any of your life. And he would yell out, and she would come out and meet her wonderful husband, and they would ride off in the sunset together with no problems, because no problems exist in marriages, right? So the occasion was a wedding, and Jesus really brought this parable home, because everybody everybody understands the concept of the wedding. Everybody understands the planning, the preparation, the seriousness of the covenant. So the occasion here is a very serious matter. It is a wedding celebrating the marriage of a king's son. So the second thing is we need to see with the wedding planning, with the wedding process, there comes the wonderful, tedious task of the invitations. Now, I have never really understood, because, honestly, but there's so much money today in invitations. You have to pick out the colors, they have to match, you have to pick out the pattern that best represents you. Does this represent who we are? Does this really say that this is who? I want this, when people say this, I want them to know who we are. I want it to represent us. And so the invitation was very important. Back then, they didn't have stationery and Hallmark and all these wedding stores. What they had back then was they had people that went through the community and they would announce the weddings. I was on a mission trip many years ago in Trinidad, and we were doing street preaching all around the community. And I remember that there was a car, an old car with this humongous horn or megaphone on top of it. I kid you not, it was probably about 3.5 feet wide, maybe 2.5 feet tall. And what had happened is someone in the community had died, and so how they got that out, how they announced it the same way they do weddings. In Trinidad, they would hire somebody, they would ride through the community with a microphone in their hand, and they would announce that this person had died or this person was getting married. So, even during the preaching, even during the speaking, you'd have these cars go right past you with these humongous horns on top, and they were announcing the death or the marriage of someone. And so the invite was a personal invite. It wasn't sent through the mail. It was a special acknowledgement of certain people in which the king's servants would go and personally invite them to be a part of it. Notice it says in verse 3 through 4, it says, and he sent his servants, the king's servants. The king specifically sent people out to invite in verse number 3 of chapter 22. And then it says in verse 4, it says, so he sent other servants the second time. The feast had been prepared, bulls and the cattle had been killed, and everything is ready to come. So twice he sent personal invitations. He said, there's food, there's fun. You don't have to do anything but show up. I just want you to be a part of this great celebration. And they refuse. I'm laying a little foundation here before we get into the very meat of the message. So the occasion was a wedding. The invitation was personal. It was up close. It wasn't a generic, it was to you specifically. Now this is symbolic, and I want you to understand the symbolism here before we go any further. In the Bible, we understand that Jesus came and he sought the Jews. He wanted to save. He wanted to redeem the Jews. The Jews misunderstood that. And the Jews thought that he was coming to free them from Roman rule. They were under the influence, under the governing powers of the Roman rule. And that's why Judas sold Jesus. He betrayed Jesus because he thought, I got to get something out of this. This man's talking about dying. I thought he was going to overthrow the government, and he's not, so I've got to get some money out of this some way, somehow. Many people thought that Jesus was come to politically separate them from Roman, but Jesus came to save them from eternal slavery. And so he invites the Jews to come to him, but they did not receive him. The Bible says he came to his own, and his own received him not. This is the symbolism that Jesus is sharing in this parable. He's talking to Jewish teachers who do not believe in him, who we've seen on occasion after occasion. They tried to arrest him. They tried to convict him. They wanted to destroy him. And Jesus says, let me tell you a story about a king, an awesome king, a great privilege, who sent people out to tell about his son. And not only did they not believe him, not only did they reject him, but they murdered his messengers just for inviting him to his son's wedding. They knew that Jesus was talking about them. See, I don't understand why, but we have become as a nation, we have gotten away from Christ. And we have fully embraced the art of religiosity. Let me explain what I mean. Our nation is probably more religious than it's ever been. But that's not always a good thing. Religion is destined to fail. It has been proven time and time again. So we want to be a religious nation. We want to be a Christian nation. See, religion will not get me anywhere, but only Christ will get me to an eternity with Him. And Jesus is painting this picture, and He's saying, guys, I'm here. My Father sent me, and you've rejected the invitation to come to this great wedding feast because... And then He gives several reasons, and we'll talk about the responses. The first one is found in verse 3. It says they refused. King James Version says they would not go. The phrase literally means that they determined that they would never, ever go. That's what it means. So we look at one group of people, and He says they invited them, and they refused. They said, we're never going to be a part of that. It's crazy. Why would I go to church on a Sunday morning? Why would I pray to a Jesus I've never seen before? Why would I put money in a brass plate when it comes by, when I work hard to get that money and put it in my pocket? Why would I want to give it? You know what? There's so many hypocrites in church, I don't want to be a part of it. You know what? All that can be true. I could be just as good as that person right there who goes to church every Sunday, and I could stay at home and get my grass cut. You're right. I know these excuses. Listen, they've been in my mind as well, but they absolutely refuse to not only be a part of it, they refuse to listen to the details. The first group refused to listen to the details of the invite. This is a group who've made up their mind before they even heard the details that I'm never going to be a part of this. Can I tell you that there's some people today who've made up their mind that they don't want to hear about Jesus? They don't want to decide for themselves. They don't want to think it out. They don't want to come face to face with eternity. They've just made up their mind that they're not going to be a part of it. And there's a second group we see in verse 4. That's the group that made excuses. The New Living Translation says that they went on their way. You know, I see people all the time, and I'm sure you've seen people. Have you ever met somebody, I'm not going to pull you out, have you ever called somebody and said, hey, I've been missing you, man? What does most people say to that? I've been busy. Okay, I want to ask you a question. How many of you are busy right now? I'm busy too, man. Some of you didn't raise your hand. I really don't like you right now. You know what? I don't want to be that busy all the time, but sometimes you ever feel like you just go home and go to sleep and wake up and start all over with again? You're just busy, and I hear people say that and go, hey man, I have missed you, bro. Where you been? And they go, oh, you know, I've been busy. I know you're not busy, but I've been busy. I've been busy. We hear that excuse sometimes, but it really began to hit me. Can you imagine one day when we stand before the Lord and the only excuse that we have to offer to Him is that we were too busy to acknowledge Him? The Bible says that there's an appointment every one of us must face. We all have appointments. We got hair appointments, doctor's appointments. We got all kinds of appointments. He said, but there's an appointment that everybody, no matter the race, no matter the background, the age, no matter where you live in this universe, that we all have in common. And that is an appointment with death. And when we die, we will stand before the judge. And when we stand before the judge, we will give an account for the life He's given us. Can you imagine the only excuse we have when we stand before God is, God, I was busy. Now, listen, I'm not being selfish or foolish in saying this because I've used this before too. I'm too busy to pray. You know what? A lot of times we as Christians, we'll say we're too busy to pray, and then something happens in our life. It's amazing how we make time for prayer when our life is falling apart. Sometimes we're too busy to care for someone else who's going through a difficult time and their life seems to be turned upside down and they're reaching out for someone to help them, but we're too busy to help them until our lives turn upside down and we reach out and want somebody to help us. Everybody's busy. We live in a busy world, but I'll tell you this in my own life, and I can only speak for myself, is that busyness is really no excuse for not serving the Lord. Because I have found in my own life when I want to do something, no matter how busy I am, I make time to do just that. One group refused to hear anything altogether. The second group made excuses of why they couldn't serve the Lord. And the third group, it says, resisted with violence. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of the world affairs today, but we all know that there's a mandate today on Christianity. It's both political and worldwide. Christianity has become really and truly, it is fastly becoming what it was years ago, and that is a group of martyrs. We see religious organizations in a lot of the heavily populated Muslim countries that are being persecuted. The Coptic Christians in Egypt have been beheaded murdered, burned alive, drowned. They have had things, explosive devices wrapped around their neck and lids, and there's been some atrocities that have gone through. They have gone through it. The reason why is because they said they love Jesus. It says that Jesus is painting this portrait and this picture. He said, listen, they refused to listen. They made excuses of why they couldn't do it, and some of them even killed other people. Now watch these. And the only reason they did it is because they were invited to a wedding. Can you imagine killing somebody not because they forced you or did something to bodily harm you, but because they invited you to a wedding and they made these excuses and they said, I'm not going to listen, and they actually killed people for that. And the Bible says in verse number 7 that the king was furious and he sent out his army to destroy. And I want to hurry with this because there's another point I want to make. The breakdown of the responses were foolish in and of themselves, and I've been a part of them. It made the king mad. Why? Because all he did was invite you. He says, I want to help you. Don't you want me to help you? Will you allow me to help you? And they said, no, I don't even listen to you. And some of them killed the servant because of a simple invitation. And this made the king mad. Can I tell you what? The reaction of the king signified his kingship. Listen to this and then I'll move on. I've heard people say, I don't want to serve a God that sends people to hell. Have you ever heard that? I don't want to serve a God who's so judgmental. Listen, God's not sending people to hell. He's doing everything He can to rescue us from that. It's like we're drowning in the water and He's throwing life preservers out and we're pushing them away. He doesn't want to send people to hell. He wants to redeem people from hell. As a matter of fact, He wants it so much that He sent His greatest possession, part of who He was, His Son, to die a horrible death, become sin who knew no sin, because He wants to save you from the very thing we accuse Him of sending people to. Hell was not created for you and I. Hell was created for the fallen angels, for Lucifer, Satan, and the fallen angels. We choose to reject God, and by default we go there. God has made a way for us not to do that. It's not about Baptist or Methodist or Pentecostal. It's about Jesus Christ. He loves you so much that He was willing to put action to those words and to die and invite you into a loving relationship. See, religion has messed up Christianity, I really believe that. He does not want people to die and go to hell. And people say, well, what do you mean by the fact that He was furious really signifies His kingship? Let me explain to you very quick. God would not be just if He did not punish sin. Think about this for a minute. We want a loving God, right? Don't you want a loving God? Aren't you glad God's a loving God? I am. But suppose today someone was riding down the road, and we hear this all the time. They were heavily intoxicated and they ran off the road and they killed somebody you loved dearly in a car accident. And they went before the judge, and the judge said, did you do this? And they said, yes, we've done this. Well, you've had a history of doing this. And they said, yes, we had a history of doing this. And the judge said, well, can you promise me you won't do it again? And the guy says, yeah, I promise I won't do it again. He starts laughing as he looks over you, and the judge says, okay, you know what? I think he means it. Let's let him go. You would be so upset and so angry at that judge, and you would say that judge is unjust, that judge is not worthy to sit in the seat of judgment, that judge should be disbarred, he should never have the ability to cast judgment again. He is unworthy to be a judge because he was not just in his judgment. He allowed this to go unpunished, and it greatly affected you and your family, and you're at a loss that can never be recuperated. He just laughed it off. He would not be a good judge. Listen, we talk about the love of God, but we must also understand that God is a just God. And He sent His Son to die for the very sin that we embrace every day and say it's okay. Can I tell you, it was not okay on the cross, and it's not okay today. So the invitation was given to all that would come. The reaction of the king was he was furious because they rejected His invitation. I'm going to hurry along real quick in verses 8 through 10. It says the invitation was extended, and that's where you and I come in. Mark 2:17, He says, I have come not to call the righteous, but sinners to repent. 1 Timothy, Paul tells young Timothy that Christ Jesus came to save sinners. Can I make this simpler this morning, please? We go through the books of the Bible and it gets a little difficult. The parable is this. Oftentimes we see in Revelation, especially and throughout the New Testament, Christianity compared to a marriage. Jesus being the groom and the church being the bride. He loves you. how someone can love us that we've never really tangibly touched or we've never tangibly seen. But I want to tell you, I can look out in this audience and I can tell you there's evidence of God in a lot of faces here. Man couldn't change me. Steve, you and I talked about it. Man couldn't change you. I mean, something bigger than you and I, something bigger than a friend or a family member changed us. It was something, and we stand here as evidence that there is a God that's big enough that can change us when no one else can change us, change our direction. And so you can blame it on counselors or you can blame it on life situations, but the bottom line is the reason I'm changed and I'm even in church today is because there's a God who made a change in my life. And He loves you and He cares about you, and He's not calling you to denomination or He's not calling you to membership. He's calling you to grace and salvation. And He's saying that there is a time when this life will end, and when it ends, I want to be waiting just for you. There's an invitation. Some of us say, I'm not going to listen. Some of us refuse and make excuses, and there are some that actually kill because the invitation is extended, and we can see missionary stories from old and new. And then there's those in verses 11 through 12 that I think is probably the most scary, and that is the unprepared. Verse 11 it says, but when the king came to meet the guest, he noticed a man who wasn't wearing the proper clothes. Friend, how is it that you were here without wedding clothes? The Bible says he had no answer. Now, if you would bear with me for about 5 minutes, we'll finish this up, and I want to bring this point home. There are people today that know they're lost. They don't care. They have no desire. I don't want to be religious, as they may say. They know they're lost. There are people today that may really and truly think that there's something, they're called agnostics. They think there's something, but they don't really know what it is. So they just kind of teeter on the edge of organized religion. There are people who are absolutely against the name of Christ, and they are willing to kill and kill others and themselves because of it. Then there's this guy. This guy thinks he's real. This guy has somewhat accepted the invitation, but he did it on his own terms. See, when a king or when a wedding, you can look this up in history, this is not just a biblical thing, when a wedding invitation was given, it says that they invited everybody, the good and the bad. And there was a proper expectation for wedding attire. And oftentimes the king, especially in royalty, he would provide garments for those who attend the wedding. So you didn't have to go out and dress shop, or you didn't have to go out and suit shop. You had that provided. You say, yes, I'm going to go. So the king would actually deliver the proper garments. I brought over here just a tuxedo I had. And so what he would do was the king would send this to you, and what you would do, and I can tell you, I won't wear this long, as hot as it is up here. He put this on. And he put his tuxedo on, and listen, you know, nowadays, and I won't even try to do this, but you got your cummerbund and your bow tie and your little sheen pants, and so he wrapped this on, and this was proper attire. We're going to make you believe this was proper attire. And they put their cummerbund on, and they would come in, and everybody would be dressed the same, and you know, it would be something of honor. It was a place of honor. Not only did the king invite you, but he gave you the proper attire. Well, this guy comes in, and he's not dressed properly. And the king notices him because he stands out. He is not prepared to be at the wedding. And the king says, how is it that I invite you? How is it that I give you clothes to wear, but you still come and stand before me unprepared? Now this is a story we've seen in the book of Matthew. In the book of Matthew we see that many will come to me that day and say, Lord, Lord, have we not worked in Bible school? God, didn't we serve on the praise team? God, didn't we pastor churches? Lord, have we not become deacons or youth workers? Lord, have we not done many wonderful works? And Jesus says, depart from me, I never knew you. This is what God is teaching us through this parable. There are so many people today that have a form of religion. Maybe they've said a little prayer in the past. I'm not beating up on little prayers, but their life has never changed. Maybe they've been to church and baptized as a young person, but there's no residual affection. And let me say this right here, guys. When you read the Bible, and a man was blind, and Jesus came by and touched him, what happened to the blind man? He saw. Would you say that was different? When you see the woman who had contaminated, diseased blood all her life and would bleed out all the time and just miserable and sick, and she touched the hem of his garment, what happened to her? Was she different? Lazarus was in the tomb, and even his sister said, do not open the tomb because he has been in this hot, humid environment for so long. We know that the smell would be overwhelming and rancid, yet Jesus called for the stone to be rolled away, and he called his name. Did he come out? Was he different? Can I ask you, in the New Testament or even the Old Testament, God and Jesus, a triune God, whenever they came in contact with a human being, were they ever the same afterwards? No. From blinded eyes to mute voices to crippled legs to the dead being resurrected back, we see in the Word of God, anytime Jesus had an encounter with somebody, they were different. What makes you and I think in 2017 we can ask Jesus to come into our lives and be the same we've always been and no different? Let me tell you something. You cannot come in contact with Jesus and not be changed in some form or fashion. I am sick, honestly, with the prosperity gospel teachers that flood the airwaves of media, whether it be social media, cable television, podcast, or anything else that use the name of God to further their own selfish desires. And they have put down a false leash. They have put this down in front of people, and people believe that this is the kind of Jesus, and we have misinterpreted who he was. He's not a greedy somebody that wants to take your money. He is someone that cares about you exactly where you are. And I'm going to tell you, I live in a day and age where I do want somebody to care for me. So the invitation was extended. This man came, and now let me show you the symbolism, and then we'll finish. We are only able to stand in eternity by God's righteousness. Job said in Job 29, I put on righteousness, and it clothed me. My justice was like a robe and a turban. Isaiah 6, the prophet said, I will rejoice greatly in the Lord. My soul will exalt in my God, for he has clothed me with a garment of salvation. He has wrapped me with a robe of righteousness. As a bridegroom decks himself with garland, and a bride adorns herself with jewels. Revelation 19 says it was given to her to clothe herself in fine linen, bright and clean, for fine linen is the righteous acts of the saints. Why does he do that? Because Isaiah said that all of us are unclean, and our righteous deeds are like a filthy, a soiled garment. All of us wither like a leaf, and our iniquities will be taken away. Zechariah, other passages say the same thing. Here's the analogy. This wedding guest came, and he stood before the king, and he didn't change. He had no robe of righteousness. He had not been forgiven. He had not been clean. He didn't accept the invitation. He did it on his terms. The king specifically said, if you come, you take these garments, and you wear them, and you will be accepted. He said, I'm going to come to the wedding, but I'm going to do it the way I want to go. The king said, you cannot. Listen, let me paraphrase what the Bible says. No man comes to the Father but by me, Jesus says. There's one mediator between God and man, and that is Christ Jesus. I don't care how organized religion is, when you take Jesus out of it, it's an impossibility to have eternal life. This man says, I'll come to the wedding, I'll dress like I want to, and nobody's going to tell me what, how to do. And the king calls him out and says, you think you can come to me? Unclean and unrighteousness, but all the work that my son has done prepared for this wedding, you will be punished for that. The Bible says he cast him out. I close with this. The man, when he was asked, was speechless, which could be translated, he had no excuse, nothing could be said. The man was given the same right as everybody else had, but he chose to do it on his own terms, and our own terms always fall short. Verses 13 and 14 show the eternal consequences of not accepting the king's invitations. It says he was bound, thrown into darkness where there will be weeping and grinding of teeth. I'm pretty contemporary when it comes to ministry, I guess you would say, but I want to go old school for 1 minute. It's funny, last week, when all of you young guys that play ball, I went out there with them guys and played about 3.5 minutes. That's 3.5 minutes I could give them, I gave to them. and I have humbly walked around with a limp all week long, crying. And my wife, who had absolutely no sympathy for me because I chose to do this to myself. But I used to go in the room, and when I did, I was always called the young pastor. I wish to God somebody would call me that one more time. I looked out, and all week, I was probably 20-something, I don't know how many guys were there last week, and it really affected me. I was the oldest one there. I did not like that at all. My point is this. Today, July 30th, is that correct? Today, July 30th, I am closer to eternity than I was July 29th. And guys, I do. God has given me a love for this church and a love for the people of this church that is more genuine, I think, than any love I've had of any church I've pastored. And I don't want to see you spend your life away from God and then stand before Him one day and be like this man and have no excuse. This past week I was called to go to the home of someone who was about to enter into eternity. And I sat on the bed beside the husband and the wife that she struggled with her last few moments. But you know what? There was still a smile on her face. The week before when I was talking to her, she actually told me, she said, I woke up this morning, I was actually mad. I said, why? Because you saw your husband looking at you with a smile? She said, yeah, that too. But she said, I just want to be with God. Can you imagine to be at that point of your life when it's about to be over and you want to leave this world? Most people fight with everything they've got, but you want to be because you know you're not going to hurt anymore, because you know that there's something more than this world. See, I want you to understand something. Regardless of race, religion, regardless of background, height, stature, anything, there is one thing that divides us, and that is our earthly choice for our eternal home. God's not going to force Himself on you, just like it is wrong for a man to force himself on a woman or vice versa. God lovingly invites you into a relationship. And you say, I've got to get some things in my life worked out. No, just like the King, God has already prepared everything. So all you have to do is accept the invitation. He's even given you garments to put on. So the filthy clothes that you wear will be seen no more. It is priestly, it is kingly garments He's giving you to wear. You don't have to do anything but accept the invitation. So when we stand before God one day and He says, why should I let you into my kingdom? You have no excuse. I have no excuse because everything has been provided. Guys, I just want you to know something today, and I'm finished. God cares about you. You say, you don't know how messed up my life is. You're right. You don't know how messed up mine is. But He loves me in spite of anything. And today He has extended an invitation. He says, young lady, young man, I want to know you better. You said, what have I got to do? I've got to do all these things. No, the Bible says if we confess it with our mouth and believe Him in our heart, we will be saved. What have I got to do? I've got to trust Him. I've got to accept the invitation. And that is what it takes to be a part of this great wedding celebration. Jesus told a story because people had a hard time understanding the good news of the gospel. I think we have just as hard a time today. God cares about you. He's inviting you to be a part of His family. And you either say yes or you say no. The choice is completely up. Would you bow your head? Verse 14, it reiterates the whole thematic process that many are called. You were chosen. Today you have a choice. It's like I have a choice. Exactly where you're at, I want you to know that that choice has been extended to you. Not by me, I can't do anything for you. The choice is being extended by God. So right where you're at, right at your seat, as the Holy Spirit speaks to your heart, you say, I got a choice I got to make. Maybe you've made that choice years ago. Maybe years ago, maybe last week, I don't know. That you said, Lord, I accept your invitation and I want to be a part of your family. Maybe today, God is speaking to your heart. Felt a little tugging, a little pulling. He said, I love you. I want to be a part of this. Right where you're at. going to tell you how you can accept the invitation. Would you pray this prayer in your heart? Father, I accept your invitation today. I want to be a part of your family. I ask you to forgive me for the things in my life we call sin. That have hurt me, that have hurt others, that have hurt you. I give you my life today, Lord. And I thank you for loving me. Can I ask you a question? And I promise you, I'm not going to have somebody run to you. I'm not going to pull you aside after church. I'm not going to point you out. But if you prayed that prayer today and you said, Lord, I accept that invitation. If you did do that, right there in the safety of your seat, why don't you just lift your hand and put it right back down? God bless you. I appreciate your honesty. God bless you. There's a step that comes next. Like any other step, it's finding that path and that new journey. I encourage you to tell somebody, maybe someone you're with, maybe even myself, a Parker after church, Pastor Ron, you know, I accepted his invitation. We just want to help point them the right direction. Father, we leave today thanking you for the awesome weather. Thank you, Lord Jesus, for the beautiful kids that sung this morning. Thank you, Lord, for the worship that we were able to participate in. Thanking you, God, for just allowing us to be here. Lord, this was a little longer message, a little more difficult message, but Father, we really wanted to understand that the invitation is meant for all. You've provided everything. All we must do is accept. And God, the choice is not going to be forced on us. We either yes or no, but God, in the end, we have no excuse. And Lord, I just pray that before we lay our head down tonight, if we do not know you, as your Holy Spirit speaks to our heart, that we would accept the invitation to be a part of a great thing, Lord God. We love you. We thank you. In Jesus, your name we pray. Amen.